Hello and welcome to Kingston Now. I'm Jimmy Buff. On Tuesday, November 8th, Kingston voters will head to the polls and vote for a new mayor. After a close battle in the primaries, the two men facing off against one another are Republican Ron Polacco and Democrat Shayne Gallo. With us now in the studio is Shayne Gallo to talk about his plans for Kingston if he's elected. Hi, Shayne.
Good evening, Jimmy.
That was an extraordinary primary battle. Had that happened before in recent history in Kingston where the primaries came down to that much of a margin?
Not in my lifetime.
How did that feel being part of that?
Very humbled, very satisfied that my volunteers and the voters received and resonated with my message, and very thankful and grateful for the opportunity, to run in this general election.
You were present for the ballot counting?
Yes, I was.
That is an aspect of the system that we don't often see exposed, the political system, because we don't get to there that often. What was that experience like, being in the room counting the ballots, the people who voted for you?
Well, not to be facetious, it was probably analogous to a root canal without anesthesia. We had two recounts. We had an audit of one of the machines and a reconciliation of the paper ballots. It was an extraordinary experience, but an opportunity to really see and understand that every vote counts. Very humbling experience again.
Yeah. So the Democratic committee had endorsed a different candidate, and then you actually announced you were running before the other candidate back in February, was it?
Actually, no. Mr. Clement, the other Democrat, announced in February. I subsequently announced in March at the King's Inn right down the street.
So how did it feel to sort of be the other candidate in the lead up to the primary?
I was driven by my feeling that the committee who endorsed the other Democrat, it's a caucus, it's an unofficial, if you will, caucus. We don't have a convention any longer in the party. I felt that it was an opportunity to reconnect rank and file Democrats to the committee, who for several years have not had any influence or input in the party. And I felt that it was an opportunity to mobilize those disaffected Democrats, around one common purpose: to reinvigorate the Democratic Party and demonstrate to the city that we're the party of change.
You have been in service to the city for a number of years in other capacities. Can you describe them?
Well, actually, back in the early 80s, I was the Executive Secretary of Civil Service, and I was responsible for the personnel benefits for all the employees and the retirees. Subsequent, I had, for the past 8 years now, been Assistant Corporation Counsel, with the city. And I'm also a public defender in family court. But with respect to Assistant Corp Counsel, for the past 8 years, I've been responsible for drafting local law, which is very important for my quality of life campaign message, as well as representing the mayor at the city council meetings, particularly with respect to the Laws and Rules and Finance Committee meetings every month. I prosecute city code violations in city court every Tuesday on the court calendar, and I also am a special prosecutor for the city with respect to the V&T tickets issued by the New York State Police.
Your family has been in politics in Kingston for a long time. Obviously your brother prior to you as mayor, and your father was an alderman, right? My
father was alderman at large under Mayor Raymond Garrigan back in the late 60s, early 70s, and then subsequent with Mayor Frank Koenig. Yes, and he was president of City Council. Prior to that, he was alderman of the old 9th Ward, which my brother was before he ran for mayor, and also the old 13th Ward, which was essentially no longer in existence because of reapportionment several years ago.
These are people who the names may sound familiar to viewers because there are roads named after them or parks named after them.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever think you'd be running for mayor? Had that crossed your mind ever before?
It had, and I just always thought that behind the scenes I could be more effective, to try to influence change. We had a lot of influence, my brother and I did too, with the Democratic committee that at that time was really run by a group of women. Like Aggie Lauren, Flo Crosby, Emma Brandow, Rose Hogan, Kay Quick, Josie Erks. All of the women in question influenced my brother, my father, Frank Koenig, Congressman Hinchy, Kevin Cahill, Assemblyman Cahill, as well as Mayor Sotile. So it was in the family. I always knew that I wanted to do it, but I felt my professional status would lend itself better to try to influence policy and change, accordingly. But I think that at this point, the city is at a critical point. It's at a crossroad. where I think my skill set, experience, connections to the community, and my understanding of what the issues are, and particularly what the resources are necessary to try to accomplish those goals, I feel I'm the more qualified candidate, and that's why I'm stepping up for the job.
Why did you make the announcement in front of the King's Inn?
For the following. I think that the Midtown Corridor has been sorely neglected for about 10 years. There's been an attempt to try to put in community development block grant money. When I announced the King's Inn, I made the point that I'd like to be there when it's demolished. And at this point, fortunately, it's going to be demolished. I think in the middle part of this month, the Army Corps of Engineers is going to do it, saving the city hundreds of thousands of dollars. We need to make that shovel ready and then to reissue proposals. But we need to ascertain its value first, and we need to also try to recoup the hundreds of thousands of tax dollars that have been lost because we took the property in an REM proceeding, in a foreclosure proceeding that the city initiated, and with the asbestos abatement monies that have been invested as well. So I did it for symbolic reasons, but to use as a springboard. I want that site developed in some way, shape, or form to reconnect downtown and uptown.
There have been a couple proposals put forward, one by Safe Harbors of the Hudson Valley and one recently by the Queens Galley, and you're opposed to both of those. Can you speak about that for a moment?
For the reason stated. I think that we don't know what the value of that piece of real estate is. I believe it's a prime commercial asset to the city. I think I've met with the developer who actually is mostly responsible for putting in hotels. He put one in out in the town of Ulster, and he's now working on a project up in the town of New Paltz. And he said to me back in April, Kingston's ripe for prosperity. He liked the idea of the King's Inn as a site for a hotel or a conference center, mixed retail, maybe some artist space, parking for UPAC. But we have to address the quality of life issues in that corridor with respect to public safety and code enforcement, and also holding accountable the social services network or the infrastructure providing services to those in need. And the answer to the question is that I see it as a prime opportunity. Once we have that value of that asset, I feel, and we reissue it as a proposal, I think that we're going to get a very favorable response. But right now, unfortunately, without knowing what the value is of the property, we're not really getting the kind of response that I would like to see.
Great. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. You're watching Kingston Now. More with candidate for Mayor Shayne Gallo when we come back. Welcome back to Kingston Now. And with us once again is the Democratic candidate for Mayor Shayne Gallo. Now, we've been talking about the property, the King's Inn property in Midtown Kingston. Wouldn't it be a challenge to bring in a shovel-ready business if the culture in Midtown isn't changed? How can you do that? How can you change that aspect?
When I announced in March at Kingston, I set forth a quality of life message or vision, which I think could be supported by the experience and the skill set that I have in Kingston. Public safety. Public safety means that we have to address the issues, along this corridor with regard to the crime rate, the gang problem, because not everyone in Midtown is a gangbanger or a criminal.
No,
we have very
not.
good people, hardworking people, property owners, and people who rent here. They're good people. So public safety means we have to put a couple of beat cops back on the street. 15 years ago, we had them. We could also bring back the bike patrol depending upon the season. We could use shared services with the state police and the Ulster County Sheriff's Department with their canine units along with their ATVs. We could also get back into the community policing. We have to also try to use a juvenile officer full-time instead of a detective taken out of rotation to put in on a part-time basis. All of these elements under public safety could address the quality of life issues that now face Midtown, because children in Midtown deserve just as much the right to play safely, and the residents deserve just as much the right to walk safely in their neighborhoods as the people who live up on Pearl Street or over by the Armory in Kingston. The other aspect of this is the culture that you're talking about, is the code enforcement that's necessary. I'm the only candidate who's drafted and reviewed and recommended more code legislation addressing quality of life than any other candidate as the Assistant Corp Counsel, which has been adopted into law. And the code enforcement, coupled with holding social services accountable who provide the payments to those in need, and the landlords who, many of them are absentee landlords. My background as a public defender in family court really familiarizes me compared to any other candidate, with understanding that infrastructure of services and the necessity of holding accountable those county agencies providing those services and the not-for-profit agencies providing those services to landlords. So as I explained to the prospective developer and other developers, they're on the same page, Jimmy, that we have to address the quality of life issues for the people who live here, the businesses who function here first, to create a climate, to pull in investment, to create a climate where people will want to come in and move into Kingston to live and do business. So that culture can be addressed without significant expense, just by reallocating resources, providing the leadership and accountability that's necessary to make it happen.
That circle you sort of just drew about how to revitalize Midtown has to start somewhere. Does it start with bringing someone in to build a place, or does it start in a different area? Does it start in...
I believe we're on the front end. Mm-hmm. The culture has to be addressed. There's a connection between the quality of life issues that are prevalent in Kingston and any economic development, respectively. Again, from what I'm hearing, with any interest in Kingston and that particular site, developers want assurances that they're going to have public safety. They want assurances. There's another thing, too, that I mentioned other than the code enforcement and holding accountability to those social services network. We have to also concentrate on our youth to make sure they have opportunities with respect to recreational programs. We have to make sure that the Hodge Center down the street is well maintained to provide those services to our youth, to give them opportunities and to give them a sense of hope, you see. So I think that if you take it in a holistic kind of focus, to then set the stage and make it shovel ready, we'll then have an interest. We'll know the value of the property. We'll be on the right track, okay, to promote Kingston and address those quality of life issues for people who live and work here and do business. And I think that'll have a pull effect, okay, to have an interest in Kingston. Because Kingston has so much to offer. We have the waterfront, we have a historical heritage, and throughout this entire campaign, what's been very gratifying is the sense of pride that people have in their city. I mean, the city truly is alive with pride, because they understand it's ripe for prosperity, as this developer shared with me in April. But they recognize if we don't have the leadership and hold accountability, okay, those agencies providing these services, and if we don't have accountability of the city departments, if we don't have a mayor who's going to lead and govern and ensure that they are moving in the right direction and they're being held accountable and we're using their tax dollars, the public's tax dollars, efficiently and to the best advantage possible, then literally our city is not going to move forward.
The Midtown issue is a big one, but what do you see as other issues facing the city of Kingston besides the Midtown area? Well,
we have the downtown. We're continuing with the revitalization of downtown. A lot of it has to do with the waterfront revitalization plan, so that the comprehensive plan that we're now engaging in, okay, and it's being right now undertaken, will provide a blueprint, a frame of reference for prospective developers. It'll also allow developers to understand what the zoning implications are of their investment. It'll also result, like it did with the waterfront revitalization plan, Jimmy, okay, with federal and state grant money. Right now, our problem is we can't get a lot of federal and state grant money. We don't have a comprehensive plan. We also have a zoning code which needs to be revamped dramatically. So,
sorry, my bad.
No. So what I'm saying is that the other issues are, with respect to economic development, we won't have any unless we have this comprehensive plan, we address quality of life, and we use the city and county economic development agencies to their maximum. We have to have a regional economic development focus. We have to tap in also to the governor's regional economic development councils, which he's just undertaken, okay, in the last month or so. So I think that the quality of life is connected to any prospective economic development. The other issues are to continue those projects throughout the city that have been started downtown. We have to get busy uptown with the parking garage and reissue a proposal for a project uptown as well. And we also have which I can get to at a later date, the union contracts are up for the negotiation as well, all three of them.
Well, let's talk about that next. You're watching Kingston Now, and we will wrap up our conversation with candidate for mayor Shayne Gallo when we return. Welcome back to Kingston Now. We've been joined for this show by Shayne Gallo, who hopes to become the next mayor of Kingston. Are you sure about that? You really want this job?
The city's at a crossroad, and I feel that notwithstanding the challenges being daunting, the city not having enough money to really do what you would like to do, my skill set, my experience, my connections to the community, my love for the city, my background, I feel that I'm up for the challenge, and I look forward to it.
The problem, the challenge, I should say, though, is that you're going to get it from all sides all the time. You saw that happen with your brother, I'm sure, right?
Yes.
So that, you know, you have to have that singular focus of what your plan is for the city, and you've been talking about that as we've been talking today. Going forward, though, we have some issues with like contracts expiring. Can you talk about that?
There are three bargaining unit contracts are for expiration, Jim. The PBA for the police, the Kingston firefighters for the fire department, and the CSEA for the blue and the white collar workers. I've had discussion with the leadership, and I'm confident that given the situation financially and the concerns that they all share, as we all do as taxpayers, I'm looking forward to a cooperative round of bargaining that will negotiate contracts that are not only in the employee's best interest, but also the taxpayer's best interest. So looking forward to it.
Is there the possibility that there might be a strike by any of these organizations?
Under the Taylor law, okay, they can't strike. Under the Taylor law, there's something called the Triborough Amendment, which keeps their expired contract in effect until a new one is negotiated. So those terms are always going to continue unless they're negotiated in good faith out of the contract. So between the Taylor law and the Triborough Amendment, the employees are well protected with respect to their current terms and conditions, regardless of whether a contract is negotiated.
It seems like in any election cycle, what candidates often talk about is what needs to be fixed. But let's talk about what is great about Kingston. What do you like about the city right now? What's working?
What I like about the city, I think that the waterfront is really a testament to a public-private partnership and a lot of spirit, volunteerism. I like to take that same kind of energy and mindset and apply it to Midtown. I've been in contact with those behind the land trust, and spoke to an individual last night associated with it, and very interesting discussion about the rail trail and using the rail trail, okay, from the Trolley Museum up to Midtown to create a vein, if you will, to Midtown, with the long-term goal to connect uptown and then parts of South Wall Street. I think it would be a magnet, it would be a draw. I'm excited that we have within the city different resources that have not been addressed for many years. And I think with a partnership with public, private, not-for-profit groups, we can tap into it. I like the energy. I think our business community is just dying to serve in an advisory capacity, along with the Chamber of Commerce. And I think if we all work together, we could take advantage of our resources, our heritage, just because we have so much pride. So I'm excited about just the energy, because people want change. And I think this is a prime moment in our city's history to do that because of the willingness of people to get involved. And I think you see that this year during the primary, we had several good candidates who stepped up for the challenge. And it's myself and Mr. Polacco who are left standing, but Ms. Levin and Mr. Clement, along with Gene Jacobs and Richard Cahill, they have the same desire that Mr. Polacco and Mr. Gallo have, that I have, of course, which is to just move this city forward, because we have so much pride, we have so much heritage, and there's so much potential and possibility, be it with the rail trail, be it with Uptown's development, be it with the Midtown development here, but it all boils down to a working partnership with government and with people and those not-for-profit agencies.
The city seems ready for that. The city seems ready to move forward. On day one, what is your first step to try and move the city forward? What would you do first?
Day one, I think what we're going to have to do is the department heads are going to have to be subject to regular staff meetings so that everyone understands what their function and role is, so that we can use each department to its fullest extent given the resources we have. I think also, too, we have to sit down on a regular basis with the employees to ensure that labor management is harmonious, so that we're all working together to provide services and save tax dollars. I have to sit down with each department head and really take a look at their personnel and the allocation of those resources to see if, in fact, anything can be improved with providing services. And one of the benefits I've had of being down in City Hall now for 8 years is really seeing the functioning of each city agency and seeing what it can do and seeing some of the shortcomings. And it's nothing personal or offensive, but just looking in at it. So I think also, too, what I have to do is to follow through with ensuring that the proposals go out for the King's Inn, to ensure, if they don't already go out under the current administration, continue those downtown projects, the widening of Abeele Street, which will, for instance, start next year near the Yacht Club and the Trestle downtown in Block Park. It's going to be expanded. There's going to be benches and a walkway along there to connect to the promenade, with the long-term goal I'd love to see connected to the Point and Rotary Park that my brother and I talked about since we were kids. So I think there's a lot of exciting opportunity, but it's going to be really based on, mobilizing and generating, a group of public and private support, and also, too, using our state and federal officials. I think that the mayor has to be on a bully pulpit to point out, for instance, that issues like the property tax cap are very well intended, but they don't include the safety net benefits we pay for the county, which is over $1 million a year. They don't include the $600,000 increase we just got for our health insurance for our employees and retirees. They don't include the 35% increase in our pension contribution. They don't include the unfunded mandates. And I think local officials, it's incumbent upon them to be on the bully pulpit. And even those issues which they might not be able to accomplish on a local level, dealing with children and nutrition and other issues like that, I think it's incumbent upon the mayor to set an example and to be out on that bully pulpit to really get people interested in those kind of concerns as well.
The general election is Tuesday, November 8th. If you're not sure of where your polling place is, you can contact the Ulster County Board of Elections to find out. And as we saw during the primaries, every vote counts, so exercise your right and cast a ballot. We'd like to thank Shayne Gallo for joining us, and you can find out more about his campaign and upcoming events at galloformayor.com and on Facebook. For Kingston Now, I'm Jimmy Buff. See you next time.